Well, now that we're done on the Olympus, time to see what's happening on the planet we're in orbit over. Get used to the map screen since we're going to be doing a lot of traveling on this ship over the course of this game. Where the other two Metroid Prime games were absolutely focused on a single planet, this one is going to have us traveling to multiple planets through it. So, the moment we left the ship, we don't see any of the fighters that were clashing in this battle that we kinda saw as we were actually exiting the hangar. In fact, we don't even see the battle happening in orbit once we leave the ship at all. We just see that there's fighting on the surface as the Federation ships still up there are apparently just catching their breath and sitting the rest of this battle out. You know, when I take this game and Star Fox Assault into account, I don't think that Nintendo is good at large-scale battles. Bit of a shame, but I suppose that you don't strictly need those to make for an interesting game. It's just their fault for choosing to try. Wait, hold on, there's a massive battle going on right now, and you're wasting time telling the partly automated ship how to land on a spot with an active beacon? I've got to admit, I can kind of respect that dedication to avoiding getting into the thick of it when you know you're about as expendable as they come.
This cannon was our only weapon capable of taking out orbiting ships. We need you and the other...
Well, the orbiting ships still up there are doing a good job of taking out other orbiting ships, or at least they should be. Not that I had a great view of the battle in orbit while we were up there, or much concern about it, really. Activate 3 generators, huh? What do you intend to do while we work on that, soldier? Guess it was a good thing I scanned that anti-air gun when I did. Well, that's got to suck. Getting pulled into a battle while you're on shore leave. Now, if only I could actually find it in me to care about the Federation troops in this questionably executed battle. Right. Some intel on the guy in the meeting that had the whole ice theme going for him. Not too sure where they caught the name Rundus from. I suppose it sounds cool, which is appropriate for a character with ice powers. Considers himself without rivals, huh? Part of me wants to call that arrogant, but then part of me also wants to say that Samus doesn't really have any rivals. I suppose you could say Ridley is a rival since we've fought him so many times in this franchise, but I'm not entirely sure that counts. Grapple lasso, huh? I'm pretty sure that's distinctive for this game, though maybe we use something similar in Metroid Dread in the 3DS remake of Samus Returns. I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't remember it that well. I'm sorry, when I see something called a terminal, I think of a computer that we type things into, not a handle that we pull back, twist, and push back in. Is my definition of terminal just a bit too strict? Really? You only managed 1 point of damage against us while we're wearing the single, most basic suit in the game. Was I meant to play this game on hard instead of normal or something? part of me wants to ask what makes this kind of blast shield something we can tear off instead of making it essentially indestructible. The other is already missing missile doors here. They were a thing in all the 2D games and the other 3D games, so why are we getting grapple doors instead for some reason? Maybe we'll get them later. Anyway, hold on a moment. Let me check my key bindings to see what part of my keyboard I assigned that motion to. This is not a knock against the game itself. On the console it was originally released on, the controls were actually quite intuitive and helped give you the sense that the player was the one ripping doors right off walls or shields from enemy hands and all that sort of thing. But it's one of those things that's probably gonna make Nintendo's attempts to make this game playable on the Switch pretty annoying, since most people I know would prefer not to do motion controls. Sure, the control scheme they came up with for the Metroid Prime 1's remaster will probably help, but there are things that you do in Metroid Prime 3 that weren't possible in 1 or 2. Grappling sections of wall and flinging them being one of the less precision-based things you could do with said controls around here. There we go. Finally figured out which of the pre-assigned keys on the keyboard I put that particular trick on. I've very much got the impression I'm not going to do a hell of a lot of Nintendo Wii games on this channel, simply because of how annoying motion controls are to emulate. What enemy presence is here? The radar says we're clear. Yeesh! Friendly fire is definitely never a great way to go down. Again, those robots are kind of amusing, but I don't think they were ever meant to be considered difficult to deal with, so I really hope the Marines in this room weren't killed by them. That would just be embarrassing. I'm sorry, I've never heard someone's skull being cracked open like an egg being described as heart failure due to extreme cranial trauma. Not that we can actually see the damage that happened on that guy's skull, or even a slight denting on his helmet here. Considering the Metroid franchise was inspired by the likes of the Alien movies, you'd think Nintendo would be more willing to show injuries on the various Marines we might come across in the 3D games. Again, the 2D games could get away with not showing some details or pulling some silly visuals, while still being taken very seriously, because they were 2D. Right, let's see what opening that vent gained us. Is that the way forward or the way to an upgrade? Right, as usual, air currents apparently send Samus flying when she's in morph ball mode. Does she just temporarily remove some of her own mass when she gets into morph ball mode or something? Because if it turns out that Samus has some digital storage of sections of her own body, I'm gonna call the morph ball an oversized Pokeball. Well, it certainly took long enough for the enemy to send something to try attacking us in here, but then they rarely actively go after us when we're in a ventilation system. Normally, there's just some wild critters that happen to be in our way. I think the Ing Spider-Ball Guardian was the biggest exception to that rule. Part of me wants to groan that I did all that for the sake of a missile expansion instead of something more meaningful. The other is just glad that there are some things that are still distinctly Metroid in this game, even if the opening doesn't really feel like it belongs in the franchise. Upgrades tucked into inconvenient corners being one of the biggest traditions since the absolute first game, back in the 80s, before Castlevania even came along to help inspire more games in the genre. We'd have been blasting those debris away with missiles in the old days. Well, since that's the only door available for us, let's take it. And look at that, another free energy tank just like the one we gained back on the Olympus. Placed in a spot that you absolutely have to go through if you want to make any further progress, so there's no way you're not going to gain the upgrade. Why the hell did we gain 2 energy tanks that way this early on? Especially considering the quality of enemies we've been facing. I'm not complaining about gaining more upgrades. It's just a bit odd to me that energy tanks, something that's generally pretty prized in this franchise, have been given to us so freely so far. Do they have low expectations for the players, or are things going to start amping up quite a bit very soon here? More dead Marines, more apathy from me. And the game is tracking our kills. That feels a bit off, considering this is Metroid. Ah well, at least we finally run into a proper missile door. And there's another one not too far from here. So it's not that it's going out of style. Anyway, this is the map station and some more terminals to read some lore. It certainly feels like it was worth coming in here. But I can't help feeling that scanning and map rooms don't really fit the kind of vibe the game probably intended with the massive battle that's been going on since around the midway point of the previous clip. Well, she's either youthful or just a lifelong gremlin. Definitely hard to tell when you're talking about someone who can change forms on a whim. And I'm sorry to have to tell Andrea this, but I severely doubt she's good enough to be what Samus considers a rival. Mostly because Samus does very little bounty hunting and far more planet-destroying nonsense. Only 6%? I'm gonna have to assume that 6% is his brain. So a man named Gore is not described as a particularly brutal fighter. Well, darn, I was hoping to be able to pull some jokes that compared him to General Grievous from Star Wars. Maybe some Rhino bits from wrestling. Ah, so he only becomes aggressive when he links up to war machines of some kind. That probably took some getting used to for him, and I will admit, a little interesting, but doesn't really fit in this series for the most part. For some reason, I was expecting to see a lore entry that the Federation might have stored about Samus herself in here. Starships powered by Phazon, but they raided the ship instead of outright destroying it. I have the distinct feeling that they didn't completely annihilate it, partly because they're pirates and you can't raid from a bunch of glassed space dust, and partly because the briefing in the previous clip mentioned that they used the Aurora unit on the captured ship to help sabotage the network. I'm sure they have some uses for the Hulk, even if the crew were just trash to the pirates. As per usual, I hate working with 3D maps, and I'm not looking forward to seeing even more than when Metroid Prime 4 finally releases. Not that I have any idea how premature that statement is. It certainly took an obscene amount of time for Metroid Dread to release, even though there were a few hints scattered in this game that it was certainly an idea in Nintendo's head for a good long while. At least I think there were hints of it in this game and not one of the earlier Metroid Primes. The lore entries from different games just feel too much alike to tell where they came from for me. So no damage from the scripted explosion that we had no chance to avoid there. Excuse me for not really giving a damn about it. And apparently it's pretty easy to deal with the landmines the enemy leaves behind so long as you happen to notice them. With my absolute addiction to scanning, I severely doubt that we're going to be caught off guard by something like that. Though I honestly wouldn't mind getting some humble pie to the face. The opening for this game just feels like it lacks so much tension for me. Right, wide open area. That's just asking for a major encounter of some kind or another around here. And apparently, the order of the day is a bunch of grunts. Excuse me for not feeling particularly threatened. Again, I'm a lot more used to pirates in this franchise being something we run into in the middle of the game, and upgrading in their own ways if we happen to keep fighting them at the end. Not this. Looks like we've got a dropship. Go ahead, leave as many troops as you want over there. Samus has taken on some of your best over the years, and these mooks most certainly don't qualify for that. Oh, thank you for that bit of advice before we've even scanned the bastard. Excuse me for feeling insulted by that. I barely touched that damn shield and it shattered like glass. At least with that one, we caught the hand motion of us pulling away to go with the shield shattering into non-existence. And look at that, the jetpack troopers have arrived. They certainly aren't shy about showing off their unit variety early on, that's for sure. And look at that, they didn't bother giving these guys any armor because these are early game hostiles. So of course, the pirates will send neutered versions of annoying bastards we dealt with numerous times in the first Metroid Prime. Well, at least the kamikaze dive still does a good amount of damage. I suppose that's something. Kind of wish I knew what was causing the little hiccups on my emulator at the moment. I'm pretty sure my computer can handle this game. I kinda wish that the dropship got a health bar here. If the easily killed space pirate brute from before we left on the Olympus warranted one, then this ship kinda does as well, especially since it feels like it can take more of a beating. And more enemies show up in the cutscene. Enemies that are oddly enough even more fragile in the cutscene than the game itself. Sorry, Rundus, I know you were going for a cool rescue scene here, but all you really did was save us the time of shooting down all those dropships ourselves. Samus did not feel in danger from where I'm sitting.
Allowing all bounty hunters to use ship command devices. You should now be able
What?
to remotely command your ship and land it here. Don't forget to perform suit maintenance and data backup if you need.
Okay, that's appreciated, I guess. It also feels like something that's undermining the idea of this being a rather fierce battle, I'm sorry to say. I'm seriously getting some mixed messages from the game at this point. Am I alone in that? Right, so bring the ship to us and we can save with it. Bit of an odd way to handle things in my opinion. And there's our ship, just casually flying in despite the fact that this is supposed to be a rather pitched battle going on to decide the fate of the planet. Bloody hell, I've got the feeling I'm gonna need a drink here. Does this version of Samus's ship come with a refrigerator? I mean, it does seem like one of her more cramped ships. I certainly doubt that the critters that climbed in for Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion would fit in this single-seater. And apparently landing the ship also unlocked a door for some reason.